Antony is a disgrace. If I'm a Manchester United fan right now, I do not want to see that player kick a ball for my club ever in the future. In the past week, not even the past week, in the past 6 days, this spinning Beyblade has been whispering and bitching about teammates, about tactics consistently. We've seen it yesterday against Arsenal when he's asked to go at left back. And we've seen it against Crystal Palace where Jamie Carragher's even calling him out for it.
Just get off the pitch. I mean, talking, whispering behind your hand. You've been absolutely awful. You're probably talking about one of the players or somebody else or the setup or the manager. Just get off the pitch, shut up and get in. You've been beat 4-0, whispering, talking about other players. Honestly, embarrassing.
And we all know what he's saying. He's making digs at whoever's playing. Why don't you look at yourself? Because he's crap. And that's not even the reason Manchester United fans shouldn't want to see Antony, although it is a big factor. He is crap. You had Amad Diallo playing yesterday, his first league start of the season, and he looked 10 times the player. But it's that toxicity that's been eating away at Manchester United's core for the last 10 plus years now since Sir Alex left. And that bitchiness, that whispering, that's a symbol of that. A player like that is not going to be any good for Manchester United, let alone his actual level isn't any good for Manchester United, especially at £80 million. And what I just find so fucked about Antony actually playing minutes at Manchester United under Ten Hag, not just because he's crap, but because you've got this toxicity. And this is something that Ten Hag set his principles out. He's tolerating this shit from Antony, but it was too much when Ronaldo did it. And I'm not saying that Ronaldo was at an age where he could really provide for Manchester United, albeit his first full season he was delivering goals. But his body of work speaks for itself. You know who Ronaldo is. You know what he's done in the game. You know what he's done in the game for Manchester United. If there's anyone that can have a little bit of leeway maybe for being annoyed when he's subbed or when he is sub, etc., I think he could have that. Antony, what has Antony done to warrant any of that? Jadon Sancho now, that is someone that is thriving. He is going to be playing at Wembley in the Champions League final for Dortmund. Now, under Ten Hag, I'm not saying that he was very good at Manchester United, not in the slightest, but Ten Hag did not tolerate any behaviour that was out of line. You know, being late for training or refusing to apologise. He was cast out for that. He is on loan at Dortmund because of that. But you can sit there bitching and whining about teammates or the fact you're having to play left back because let's face it, as a winger, you're going to do fuck all against Arsenal, Antony. You need to do a job for your team. That's what you're paid to do. You're paid to be at Manchester United. You're paid to help Manchester United win games. You're going to do your job instead of bitching and whining about it without the body of work to at least give yourself that bit of leeway. You need to prove yourself, and that bloke hasn't proved himself in the slightest in his time in England. I would just be seething as a United fan, not just because the club's in complete disarray, but when it's so notable and in public displays of toxicity like that, that's something that no one can ever get behind within a player. And you just look at players like that and think, you need to get out. You need to spin your little Beyblade fucking arse out of this club and get out. And it sums it up, like I said, that Diallo actually outplayed him yesterday. Anyone with a working pair of eyes can quite clearly see that's a better player. And it took till yesterday to work that out, to give him a start in the Premier League. Now, people might think I'm being harsh on Antony. This is someone I've defended in the past for his little Beyblade antics, spinning around on the ball. I'm not some stat shagger. I do not want to see players deprived of their individuality. I want to see them have the freedom on the pitch to create, to do a little bit of fun and have a bit of flair. Give us something to be entertained by. So that side of things, I defended Antony on in the past on TikTok. But the reality is, unfortunately, he's not very good. And this sort of behaviour is not warranted, and no one really wants to see it. Unless you're looking at the downfall of Manchester United, that's the only perspective you can say, oh, that's nice to see. I'd be fuming as a United fan seeing this shit. Like I said, from a player at that level as well. It really does beg the question as to why he's getting minutes. And there's only one reason for that. Or there only can be one reason, right? It's not because he's good. It's not because he's a positive influence, because you're seeing that. It's the fact that Ten Hag, that was his guy, and they paid an awful lot of money for him. And they got it awfully wrong. And in the end, things like this that seep into that toxic nature, that's what's going to end up costing Ten Hag his job, and perhaps the lack of structure and everything else, the fact he's not very good, it seems. But incidents like that, that's not creating a healthy camp. And an unhealthy camp, that goes one way, and they're not going to sell all the players, are they? Especially ones they've just bought that was his guy. It's such an interesting case with Manchester United, not just because of the plight of the club, because this is something that's been a constant for years. It's an endless cycle in that sense. So that's probably why some don't want to break that cycle and get rid of Ten Hag. He's not the problem, because what about these managers? I get all that. But there's so much to do. And now with Ineos coming in, obviously Ratcliffe, you wonder how they're going to fix it. This isn't minor surgery. This is major surgery. Not just on the squad. It's top to bottom. Everything has to be changed. Like Dan Ashworth and a bloke from City is not going to fix everything. Maybe down the line there'll be a help to fixing everything, but there's so much to do. The recurring issue within Manchester United is not the fact that the next manager always gets left with the last manager's players, or it's an amalgamation of several past managers' players. It's the fact that a lot of them aren't very good. It's a fact that a lot of these signings end up duds. I mean, even someone like Højlund. Now, I think Højlund has shown he can finish to a decent level. He's shown on like the counter he can be quick. Not a lot else to his game, if we're honest. At £70 million, he's nowhere near justifying that fee in the slightest. Is that a concern? Do United maybe need to look at getting a striker already? There's a couple bits of youth that I think are encouraging in Kobbie Mainoo, and I actually think Garnacho, he was someone that was slandered a lot yesterday because of his final end product. I get that. I actually like Garnacho. I think he's, number one, he's very talented. Number two, he's like 19. Three, it's a winger that relentlessly takes on his man despite failing multiple times. Now, that's confidence you can't coach. There's a degree of naivety there, but it's a degree of naivety that needs to be harnessed correctly, and he is harnessing it correctly. He will relentlessly go whatever fullback he's against constantly, and eventually that will develop, as will some of that decision-making. Like I said, he's 19. That's a good player there. And online, some of the fan base going at people like Bruno, he's not been himself, but Bruno is one of the only successful big signings United have made post-Ferguson. There's not many. You can count on one hand how many like properly successful. We're not talking like, oh, you know, Pogba on his day, he had a good game. It's not that. Like Zlatan was a good free agent. He did a job for a year. That's fair. But your Lindelofs, your Varans, your Casemiro got a year now. You're going to have to ship him out because he looks cooked. And even something like that with Casemiro, right? And he does look cooked. He does look like he's coming towards the end of his career. It's maybe not the level for him, etc. Maybe he's not getting the best structure in place to get the best out of him. You surround yourself in a nice structure. You'll see Casemiro maybe shine to some degree. But he didn't even fucking move. He didn't even move to play him offside. That's laziness. He can run. He might look like he's running through treacle, but he can run. He could have ran to play Kai Havertz offside. That was very doable. And it just shows how discombobulated this whole United dressing room is under Ten Hag. The fact they're not even following basic instruction like that. A multiple Champions League winner in Casemiro can't move his arse 10 yards a little bit quicker. He can. He didn't. Switched off on the beach. They've clocked out. And that's something as a football fan you never want to see. You never want to see, basically, they're not downing tools to the manager as such, but like they're just clocked out. They're not enjoying their football. They're not loving football. They're not giving everything. And I get it, people will claim injuries, etc., especially with the centre-backs out. Were they really good when the centre-backs were there? Lisandro Martinez obviously has been out a lot of the season, briefly been here. But were they amazing? Last season, towards the end of the season, how United ended that season, were they amazing? This is something that's been on the cards for a long time, regardless of injury. Even someone as at my club in Mason Mount, what was the plan there? What was the plan there? Was the plan was to play Bruno, Mount and Casemiro? Think of that as a midfield. Think of the gaps that have been very apparent throughout United's season, regardless of whether Mount's played, because he's been not there, he's been injured a lot of the time. But they've been ever present anyway. So if you had Mount and Bruno, is Mount supposed to replace Bruno? Is Mount better than Bruno? Even at my most biased points as a Chelsea fan when Mount was with us, I'm not going to sit there and tell you. And these are Ten Hag's guys. It's not a case of he needs to get all his own play. Okay, Antony is his player. Højlund they brought in. Mount they've brought in. Casemiro they brought in. Martinez could be, in his first year, you'd be like, okay, yeah, he was pretty successful. But he's been non-existent this year, so tricky one. I was also playing in that 7-0 game. Like, you can't ignore all these things. It's not like last year was all perfect. United went on a really good run once Ten Hag abandoned his initial structure where he wanted to play. They lost the first 2 games with Brighton, got hammered by Brentford, and then went, right, sit back and counter. Well, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer could have done that. That's what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer kind of played. He could have done that. And they got a lot of joy up till when they won that Carabao Cup. From there on, it's just been a slope downward. But honestly, that Antony footage has just wound me up. Like, seeing it in the Palace game, I thought, that bloke is such a little shit. The fact that he's trying to call players out, him, of all people, you are not in the position. If Bruno was whinging, etc., 1, we'd be calling it out. 2, at least he'll be a little bit warranted. You think he's done a lot for that United side, carried them at a lot of points. At least that's slightly warranted. It's not acceptable, but you understand it a little bit. What the fuck has he done? Who does he think he is to be doing that? Not only that, it's just mad. I can't even think how United fans feel in regards to their club. Must just feel lost. Really lost with it all. That's not the Manchester United they would have grown up with, or not even just grown up with, older fans and that. This, at the moment, spoiled kids, everything's in disarray. And I wonder where they go from here. I wonder what Ratcliffe and Ineos are actually going to do, because it is a lot. It's a lot to do. Like, it's a rotten apple to the core. I mean, it's even epitomised by the fact you had all that leakage at Old Trafford yesterday. The whole Old Trafford's falling down with a fucking waterfall coming down off the Stretford end. Like, how has it all got to this? It was very symbolic yesterday. Even some of the reaction, and I actually felt it just watching. I was thinking, United haven't been that bad. They lost at home 1-0 to Arsenal, and you're looking at it thinking, United haven't even been that bad. 13 years ago, you're watching 8-2 United Arsenal. Look at the trajectories. One's going up here and one's going down there. I don't know if this is the lowest point of a lot of United fans in terms of they've had a lot of turmoil over the years. The Ragnick year weren't great, etc. I would, just from an outsider's perspective, I think this would be the most concern I'd have. Maybe a bit of hope with Ratcliffe and Ineos. If that wasn't there, it would probably feel the bleakest, I imagine. But I don't know, some of the players, I can't imagine it's very likeable, especially when you've seen good players. Like, I've had my frustrations with Chelsea the last couple of years, because you're watching this thinking like, fucking hell, I've seen top level here. We're watching this, and it's been a constant cycle for United for a while now. In regards to Antony, in regards to Ten Hag, like I said, with his principles that he set, following it, not at all with Antony, someone that has not justified bending the rules for, I just find it mental. I find it absolutely nuts. Like, to bend those principles for Antony, you're trying to establish you're the man. I'll get rid of Ronaldo, Sancho, you can go, whatever. But you'll bend the knee at Antony, a literal Beyblade of a human. Honestly, the fact that I felt that worked up to talk about this bloke when he doesn't even play for Chelsea, it's not even that. It's bigger than that. When you just, something hits you in that core and you think, that is so wrong for him to be acting like that. I don't know if I'm on an island in thinking this, or maybe it's just United fans, maybe, or whatever it is. Let me know what you guys think of this incident. Is it a bit of a mountain out of a molehill from myself in terms of how I see it? For me, it irks. Something gets under your skin. You're just like, I couldn't be having that. I don't even like seeing it at another club, someone doing that, taking the piss. But yeah, let me know what you think of the incident. I'm going to be commenting on a lot more other clubs and everything that's going on, moving basically everything I've been doing on TikTok over to YouTube a lot more in the future. So make sure you stay tuned, hit like, hit subscribe. All that stuff helps me a lot. In a bit, guys.